Hey everyone, welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today's episode is about how change comes when you're proactive. My guest this week is Cici Manwa, who is an elected councillor and also one of the youngest elected councillors in the UK. It was wonderful to talk with Cici and to learn more about her path, so without further ado, let's dive into this episode featuring Cici Manwa.
Hi everyone, my name is Cici Manwa and I'm an elected councillor in the UK. My ward is in Essex. I actually represent my hometown, which is something I'm really excited about. And so I'm one of the youngest elected politicians in the country. And my kind of motivations are to try and encourage more young people especially from ethnic minority backgrounds and women as well, like those kind of three areas or demographics of society I try and encourage to get more involved and civically engaged. And I'm a public speaker and a recent graduate from the LSE. So I've been spinning a lot of plates, but that in short is who I am and what I do.
That is incredible. I'm so excited to talk with you. And I actually got to see you talk at the Girls Who Talk Politics event. So I know a little bit about your story, but can you tell me about what got you involved in this work? What made you choose this career that you're working on now? And what was kind of that catalyst for you? Give me the whole story.
Well, I would say my path into local government was kind of an accident in a way. I used to help the lady who held my seat previously, quite a few years ago now. I was around about, I would say 13, 14. And I would go out and help leaflet, door knock, because that's the bread and butter of local politics and local government in general. And so getting more involved in that kind of got me interested in it. I was also part of my local youth cabinet, which is essentially the council would bring together a group of young people, anyone could join, and we just talk about local issues, things that we cared about. And I was part of that for about 4 or 5 years. I was a member of youth parliament representing my area on a national sort of level, but that was all kind of during COVID. So it was all a bit hectic. And long story short, I turned 18 and I was told that I need to leave the youth cabinet because now I'm technically not a youth. I mean, at 18, you still feel so young, right? But I had to kind of move on from that. And then the lady who I used to help campaign, after about 11 years of holding her seat, she lost the election. But she was like, I'm going to step away from local politics. But in a few, years or next year, they're going to be looking for more people. You should consider running. And that was the first time I'd actually considered, running for elected office at the local level or at any level for that matter. But I did some research and I saw that the average age of a councillor is around about 60 to 63 in England. And that made me really question, where is the younger representation in our local levels of democracy? I think that's really important and we currently don't have that. So that really pushed me to just stand. And it was a situation where it was, if I win, that's great. If I don't win, I've still gained an amazing experience of standing for election. So to me, I just kind of saw it as a win-win situation. And I guess the rest is history. My friends and my family really helped me campaign, and I'm a Labour Party councillor, and I think the party as well were quite excited to see a young, fresh face actually interested in what goes on in local government. So if all those things combined, I ended up winning the election. And I guess I could say now that the rest is history.
Definitely. I think that is amazing. And I love how you were kind of in the right place at the right time, but it also does take that step to push yourself to do it. And I think that idea of, if I won, great. If I didn't, also great. Because I think you were just in a place where you have so many, like you said, plates spinning and you have so many things going on. I think it's so inspiring to hear you just really went for it. You put yourself out there and you did it. And I think a lot of people listening might need a push like that. I think that hearing conversations like this and hearing stories like this can sometimes be that catalyst for, you know what? Why not? Go for it. I think that's amazing. Can you tell me about how you managed to do all of this juggling? I think you're in such a place in life where so many people are going through the natural changes of being kind of a young adult and facing lots of different challenges and questions about their lives. And then you add on running for office and of course then being a counselor. What has that been like for you, being able to manage your time and also look after yourself and your own mental health and do that self-care for yourself? What has that been like?
I love that question because it's something that, especially recently, I've been thinking about a lot. And upon that reflection of trying to balance everything, because when I won, I was in my first year of university. So most of my career so far in like local government has been I've also been a student. And that was difficult because it meant quite a lot of sacrifice. It meant running back and forth from central London to my hometown in Essex to go to a council meeting or to meet this resident or do X, Y, and Z. So it did mean that I had to be quite disciplined with my time. And yeah, I guess that means some sacrifice, but I think a lot of people are surprised to know that I do a lot outside of my council and kind of political work in terms of I travel a lot. So in my downtime where I don't have a council meeting or I don't have anything else going on, I love to explore, whether that's in Europe, whether that's Thailand, for instance, or somewhere else. Like, I really, really enjoy that. And that's a hobby which I have. And I'm fortunate enough that I get to do that. I would say I exercise, like, my taking walks is really important for my mental health because that is something that's very, very important. And especially over recent months, it's something I've given a lot more thought to just because of how volatile I feel like the current political climate is. Working in politics, studying politics, reading, once your entire life kind of seems like it revolves around this thing, it can get very overwhelming. And that's just for honesty. So for me, exercise is important. I've started picking up art because I really used to enjoy painting when I was younger. I've always been quite a creative person and I've tried to lean back into that. I enjoy spending time with animals, which is something that I wasn't really an animal person a few years ago. But now, like whether it's dogs, cats, horses, donkeys, whatever, like if I have an opportunity to interact with animals, I'll do it. I love it. And just spending time with my family, I think is those are the ways that I try and ground myself because, yeah, I guess when you're running around and doing so many different things at so many different times, if you're not careful, you can just get burnt out very easily and overwhelmed. And I think that's a reality that a lot of young people could probably relate to. But those are just the things that I try and do to stay sane in what it seems to be like an increasingly insane world.
I think that makes so much sense. And the walks, that's exactly what I do. I put in a podcast and I just kind of tune out, don't think about work for the most part. And it's the best way to just drown out the noise from everything for a little bit. I think that that's wonderful. Can you tell me, I'm sure you've gotten this question before, and I'm sure you've thought a lot about this, but how has it been to be a young person in a role like this? People might say, you're too young. How
Yeah.
can you represent the views of the people, things like that? I don't want to put words in the naysayers' mouths, so I'm not going to, but I'm sure that you've heard a lot of that. How do you deal with some of that? How have you kind of come back to some of those criticisms? What does that look like for you?
Well, that was a big criticism, or I'd say the main criticism, which I got when I first ran. I think surprisingly, when I knocked on the doors during my campaign, a lot of older people, so I'm saying people in their 80s and 90s, when they'd open the door and they'd see me, they were actually really excited. And they were like, wow, it's really good to see that the younger generation are getting more engaged in politics. I think this is really good. I did have a few people come, and when they see me at the door, they're thinking, wait, who are you campaigning for? They think I'm here on behalf of someone. And I'm like, oh, no, it's me. Hi, I'm the candidate. And they'll be like, oh. But overwhelmingly, I have to say, the electorate were actually really excited to see a young person. And I got so many words of encouragement regarding that. And that is something which I'm really grateful for. It is nevertheless, though, the main criticism which I received. But I think at the end of the day, age does not determine competency. And that's something which I remind myself is something which I know. And I think all of the experiences which we bring from our different backgrounds, whether that's age or race or gender, I think it just makes for a much more well-informed governing body. And I think that's what we need for a healthy democracy, a range of voices, a range of opinions. And young people deserve to have a seat at the table. By the time you're 18, you're allowed to vote. I don't think it should be controversial that you should also be able to sit around the table where decisions are being made. I just think it's necessary in order for us to have a well-functioning democracy in this country.
I think that is so important. And then that leads me, what about votes at 16? I think, I'm sure that you've also thought a lot about this, but what's your take? I know that it's not passed yet, but people are hopeful that it will be. And I guess for any international listeners, can you talk a little bit about that and what that might mean for the UK? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And I'm sure that you've thought a lot about it. So,
Thank you. Okay, so from my perspective and knowledge, the votes at 16 is essentially to get us in the UK to reduce the voting age to 16, to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to be able to vote, which is something when I was 16, it was something I was really, really excited about. Obviously, I thought a lot because I wanted to be able to vote. I've been a very politically engaged person for quite a long time in my childhood. I was that person. And I think overwhelmingly that is a positive idea. I do think that young people should be able to engage, especially when there are decisions on the table that are going to be very long term and impact people for generations to come. I do think it makes sense that younger people would be able to have a stake. For instance, when it came to Brexit, I do think that if, let's say, 16 and 17-year-olds could have voted, that could have made a very big difference considering how marginal it was between the vote leave and vote remain. And I do think, though, that in giving 16, 17-year-olds the vote, it's important that civic education is kind of promoted and we are giving people the correct tools so that they can make an informed decision. However, I would just say generally, the British electorate, we could do a lot more in terms of getting people to be politically engaged and aware, and civic engagement is already quite low as it is. So I don't agree with the kind of argument that, oh, young people, they don't really know anything. If anything, I think young people, with social media and technology, we are now more than ever more aware of what's going on around the world. But misinformation, disinformation is a big thing. And we really need to work on combating that because at the end of the day, amongst other groups, young people are going to be the targets for that sort of stuff. So it's important to make sure that everyone's being given that, equal opportunity to be able to make the best decision at the ballot box for them and their family and for society in general, no matter what that might be. But yeah, I do think that civic engagement generally, or civic education, I should say, that is a really important thing which we need to be encouraging.
yeah, I think that is so important. And I totally agree with the misinformation side, media literacy, all of that. I think you raised so many important points there. What is your favorite part of the work that you do? I'm envisioning that there's probably no day is probably the same for you. You've probably got so many different things going on.
Right.
But what are some of the highlights for you? And yeah, what do you look forward to doing as a counselor? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I would say my favorite part of being a counselor is getting to help people and getting them an outcome. That honestly is my favorite part. That's the thing that keeps me going because local government is tricky. It's not always easy. Sometimes there's something that you might want to do and you're not able to get it done for a range of different reasons. And that can be disappointing at times. But being a counselor gives you the ability to help people with their day-to-day problems, even if it's getting their bin sorted or making sure that the grass was cut in a certain spot in town or making sure that a road sign has been rectified or it's been removed and you need to put it back. Like it's those small things that people might not realize, but really are part of the day to day. Being a counselor is a great way that you can help people in your local community with their day to day issues and problems. And I think that is my favorite part of the job. I mean, I also love hearing different opinions and going into meetings and being able to use my expertise and my perspective and my experience and use that to inform how policy is being formulated when we're scrutinizing policy, being able to advocate for people who otherwise wouldn't be able to advocate for themselves. Sorry, I feel like I've given three reasons instead of one, but those are all the things in general. I think they all wrap up neatly into just being able to help people. I really, really like that. And that's the reason why I got into it in the first place. That was my motivation. And when I'm able to do that, I am very, very pleased.
That's awesome. I think that is such a great answer. And that those three answers, they all tie into that one. So I love it. Yeah, I can't imagine how many amazing conversations you've had and how many people you've gotten to meet and help them. I think that's so fulfilling. And I'm sure it's so wonderful to hear anyone who's listening to this and they're thinking, oh, maybe I would be interested in a career in politics. I think, like you said, there's so much political volatility going on right now that there's probably a lot of people who might be turned off from careers in politics, or they might
Yeah.
be, worried about going into that field. But you saying that you are able to make that change and see a lot of tangible difference is so powerful. When you started this journey and as you're continuing with this, do you have someone who motivates you, who is kind of a role model that you look to? Or is there maybe words of wisdom that you think about a lot? Maybe you're having a bad day and you need kind of a pick me up. What does that for you?
I would say recently I've been following American politics quite closely, and Jasmine Crockett is an American politician. She's a black woman, and I'm not sure if she's a congresswoman or maybe you could correct me on that. She is an American politician, nevertheless, and she's really, really inspiring in the way in which she talks and she presents herself. And I'd say I kind of look up to her. I think Barack Obama, as a child growing up, kind of seeing him and what he achieved was really big. I mean, I did my dissertation on him, comparing him and Kemi Badenoch and their political rhetoric, which was really, really interesting, and to explore the kind of concept of the Black diasporic experience. So that was really interesting to me. I mean, there's a poet slash rapper slash writer. His name's Akala, and he's really, really cool. And I remember watching his Oxford Union address quite a few years ago now. That really was one of the turning points for me in becoming even more sort of politically engaged. So I'd say that I still follow him to this day. I've read his books. Afua Hirsch, she's really cool. She's a Black British writer, written a really cool book called British. So I'd say figures in those spaces kind of motivate me, give me inspiration in terms of the words of wisdom which I live by. I guess it's that it's very easy to complain about something, but the more interesting thing is what you're going to do about it. And it's something which I really do live by. I'm a really practical person. I like to get things done. And I think that being a counsellor has allowed me to do that. But I've just been inspired by a lot of people who've come before me and have paved the way so that I can do what I'm doing now. I'm not ignorant of that fact that a lot of people have had to come before me for me to be where I am today. And I just hope to continue the legacy and the work and hopefully just inspire more people to get involved. That's like my mission. So
That was beautiful. And that leads me so well to my next question. But I also just looked it up to make sure that I wasn't wrong. But Jasmine Crockett is in the House of Representatives. So
yeah.
you were there, Congresswoman. I have one more question for you, and that is that lots of young people want to get involved in making change, and that might be through politics or it might be in a different sector, but a lot of them might not know how to get started with this work. What advice would you like to share with those people who might be listening?
I would say be proactive, put yourself out there, because the worst thing that you could hear is no. And more times than not, people are excited to see young people actually interested in what's going on. I mean, I'm speaking from a local government perspective here, but in terms of getting more involved in politics and practical steps, I would say have a little think around your political values. If you already know exactly what those are and what party that most aligns with, then try reach out to your local party, attend their meetings, see what's going on, attend your local town halls or your local council meetings and sessions. A lot of them are open to the public. So if you want to have a bit more exposure as to what's actually going on there, do that. Youth cabinet, if you're under the age of 18, that can be a really cool way for you to meet other young people that are like-minded about creating positive change. And the big thing that I will say is that there is no one correct way in order to engage with politics. You can do it through electoral means and voting, which is very important. You can also do it in other ways in terms of activism or in terms of galvanizing your local community around a certain issue, like creating a petition. And all of those things are important in order for us to have a well-functioning democracy overall. We need all of these moving parts all being synchronized. But those would be the main things that I would say you could do in terms of practicality to get more involved. But yeah, just try and put yourself out there. And eventually something will stick, even if it feels like it's really difficult to break in, you will do that. And eventually it will work. And you can always reach out to me if anyone wants to ask any questions.
I really enjoyed talking with Cici, and I love how passionate and hopeful she is about the work she's doing. It was inspiring to me to hear her talk about how so many people in her area were excited to see young people getting involved and being interested in politics, rather than being too concerned that Cici wasn't old enough or experienced enough to hold an elected office. That gives me a lot of hope for the future, and it really inspires me. And if anyone out there is interested in running for office, hopefully Cici's story inspires you too. I want to leave you with my main takeaway from talking with Cici, which is that you have to seize the opportunities that come your way. Cici was proactive and took the leap to run for office, and is now doing incredible work for her constituents as a councillor. It's the new year, so there's no better time to explore new opportunities, submit that application, or join that organization. And Cici's story is a great reminder that change comes when you're proactive. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can find Cici on Instagram and LinkedIn, and I included those links in the description of this episode. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at Be The Change Media Network. I'm working on expanding Be The Change Media Network, which means bringing you more inspiring stories from amazing guests. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could leave the podcast a rating and a comment, because it will help these stories to reach, educate, and inspire more people. And I would also love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.